Well, welcome to the recording for Visual Basic Week 7, and you can see that Week 7 goes from September 23rd to 27th, and this is the Exceptions Handling Unit, the EH unit. And the Exceptions Handling Unit talks about errors that programs have and that programmers set up to happen intentionally to make the user put in the right information. Usually that's the reason they have these types of errors. So if we scroll down, of course, we have the write-up that you'll do as always, and then some of the other work. We're not doing the discussions. We haven't done the discussions at all. I add those in as part of the Class Connect write-up to a certain degree. So you're going to study the introduction, the section A, complete the exceptions handling quiz, and as I move down, you'll see that all the quiz previews are right here. The quiz previews are all together there for you as usual. This is optional. Those who want to do the program assignment, the arithmetic error program assignment, you're welcome to do that. Skip this other discussion and then complete the predefined exceptions quiz. For the second half of the week, section C, user-defined exceptions assignment. That's going to be a little bit of research online. Skip the discussion, user-defined exception quiz you'll do, and the exceptions handling project, you're going to skip that. That's optional. So sorry for the interruption. I had to fix something. The exceptions handling unit project, that's optional. That last assignment is optional. So that's the work you have. Now just remember, we're in week 7. And of course, as you know, this is a 9-week course. So we have week 7, week 8, and week 9. So 3 weeks left in this course. If your grade is really low, if you're less than 400 points right now, you need to pick it up. Start getting your points, getting your work. Actually, if it's less than 300 points, you need to pick it up. Start getting some work submitted. Okay, let's move on down. So first thing we want to do is look at the Class Connect write-up as usual. So if you look at this write-up, on the introduction screen, what are 2 reasons exception handling is necessary when you write a program? What are 2 reasons it's necessary? So let's go to the introduction part. If we look at this, so this all talks about exceptions handling. So the unit deals with exception handling, which is an essential element of programming, also known as error handling. And it's necessary whenever you create a program for 2 reasons. The first reason is that the computer needs to know how to respond if things don't go as expected. The second reason is in case the program is not written correctly. So those are 2 reasons exception handling is used. Because the computer needs to know how to respond if things do not go as expected, and in case the program is not written correctly. So those are the 2 reasons that exception handling is used. This whole unit, we're going to look at understanding what exception is, explain exceptions handling, comprehend different types of exception handling, and work with exceptions. Of course, this doesn't pertain to you anymore. Always go to the gradebook to see the different assignments and how much they're worth. And here's a key term activity. So just go through this, and this is going to talk about different terminology with exceptions handling, so you can go ahead and take a look at that. And the discussions, of course, we don't do the discussions. Okay, section A. So let's go back to the write-up. So if you look at section A, what are the 2 ways a stop caused by an exception can happen in a program? When you debug a program, what does Visual Studio Application do? List the 3 types of errors that can occur in a program. So in general, an exception is a malfunction to the regular program. It's not part of the usual operation of the program. And an exception stops the flow of the program. So that's why it's really important. And what we're going to do, we're going to understand what an exception is, define error handling, explain different types of errors, and list the advantages of exceptions handling. So what is an error? What is an exception? Well, we look at this. An exception is an event that occurs during the execution of a program that interrupts the flow of the program. And a stop to a program is caused either by an error in the code or an error in the input provided by the user. So those are the two things that can make a program stop. If there's an error in the code or if the user input the wrong information. See, the idea would be there, like if you're typing in a password and you input the wrong password, then that would be an example of this type of an error. So those are the two types of an errors, the ways that stops can occur in a program. So this talks about traffic jams, and it kind of relates it to, like, traffic. You have the flow of traffic, and then when the traffic gets jammed up, then there's been an error in the way the traffic is flowing, right? Well, same way with computers. And often in traffic, it can be self-correcting. Cars start moving, getting out of everybody's way. But in computers, it may not. So, and actually in car traffic accidents might not either. So if the police and medical personnel come, they come to handle the exception, right? They come to handle the issue with the traffic flow. So same thing with programming. In Visual Studio, when you do debugging finds the errors within a program, and what Visual Studio will do is it will display an error message to the programmer. So when you do debugging, it displays the error message to the programmer. So I'm going to go back to the Class Connect write-up. So I just answered this question right here. When you debug a program, what does the application do? It displays an error message, right? And when you start looking at different types of errors, there are really three that can occur. And this talks about, it kind of relates it, when a plumber is under your sink and you have a leaky faucet. Well, the plumber tries to see what the cause of the problem is. Then if he suspects a leak, then he tries to locate a leak. Then he tries to fix the problem. Same thing with programming. Programming, you go line by line in your code to find out what the error is. Now, different types of error. These are the three different types. There's a runtime error, which happens when the program is running. There's a compile time error that happens when it's being compiled when you're executing it. And finally, a logic error, and that usually happens when somebody is inputting information. So you can listen to this, and it'll tell you all about these three types of errors, and you can read about them down below. So the run type happens during the execution of a program. Compile is during when it's being compiled, when you're going through the debugging process. And then logic errors, this happens when a person is, generally when the person is running the program. Okay, again, we're not doing the discussion, so don't worry about that. And then you have the exceptions handling quiz, and there's the quiz previews are right there. So I'll click on the quiz previews. You can see exceptions handling quiz and user-defined exceptions quiz. So those are there for you. Okay, section B. And let's go to the write-up first, of course. So here are the write-up. And section B, what does a user-defined error require? When do predefined exceptions occur? What type of an error would you get if you tried to call a number that was not in an array? So this is predefined exceptions. And predefined exceptions are ones that the programmer thinks are going to happen. So what the programmer does in the planning phase is think of possible errors that you might run into and makes those part of your flow chart. That could be like errors when people input numbers when they're supposed to put letters in and things like that. So we're going to understand the types of exceptions in Visual Basic, determine predefined exceptions, and how to use them in code. So there are two types of errors. There's a predefined exception and user-defined. Well, predefined are ones that are like system errors, like out of memory on your computer. So if you have too many applications running, you're going to get an out of error. That's predefined, meaning that it is set up by the programmer. So that's one type of an error. Then user-defined are when messages come up when the person is using the program. And user-defined exceptions require the user to fix their input in order for the program to work correctly. So for instance, in this case, when a person is told to type in a number, they might type in a number that has decimals or something similar to that. Or if you put in an invalid password, then you're going to get a user-defined. So simply what that means is that user-defined exceptions, they require the user to fix their input in order for the program to work correctly. So if I go back here, what does user-defined error require? Well, I just said what it required, right? It requires the user of the program to fix it before the program works properly. So that's user-defined. Now predefined, these are ones that are programmed in by the programmer who thinks that things might go wrong with, or predefined, I mean, are ones that happen through the coding of the program. And these are interruptions that occur when the computer has encountered a situation and stops the flow of the program. Like if your voice mailbox is maxed out, then you'll get a memory full error. Or in your computer, if you have too many applications open, then you'll get like a Stack Overflow or something similar to that. So keep in mind that predefined exceptions occur when the computer has encountered a situation that stops the flow of the program. So that's the answer to one of the Class Connect write-up questions. When do predefined exceptions occur? Right here, when it's encountered a stop to the flow of the program. Okay, different types of errors. There's an out-of-memory error. So this could be if your USB drive, your thumb drive, or removable drive doesn't have enough space. Some of you have maybe seen that type of an error. Stack Overflow exception. So Stack Overflow could be a number of things, and usually what the programmer does is they tell the person what the error is instead of just a blinking cursor. So if we look at this, this has a Stack Overflow. This program uses a print command to print the value C. The program also uses the catch block to catch the exception in a variable named E. So it seems hard to understand here, but if we look down below, you can see the type of error that can occur. So if we go up here, so a console write line, the answer is C. Press enter to continue, and then if it returns anything other than E, or other than C, then it's going to give the overflow error. Null reference exception. Null essentially means 0. So this would be like when you have a variable that doesn't have a value assigned to it, or when you have an object without any value. So null means nothing. So it's when when you haven't put in the proper information and something is trying to use a blank space, but it needs to have a number in that space. Index out of range. This is another one. This happens with tables or arrays. So you can see in this array has 9 items. So item 0 is the number 5, item 2 is the number 3. Well, if somebody tried to access this array and look for item 10, well, there is no item 10 in this array. So this is an example of an index out of range exception. So that's one when you try to use a value that's not part of the array. That's an answer to the Class Connect write-up question. Then some other predefined exceptions. So you see the different codes they're put in, different classes. So this was one divided by 0. Of course, you know you cannot divide by 0. Then this would give an error that somebody was trying to divide by 0. Now this understanding predefined exceptions, this is writing a basic program. This is an optional assignment. If you would like to do that or give it a try, you're welcome to try. Little drag and drop activity, so take a look at that. Advantage of predefined, we skip the discussions. I include a lot of those in the write-up, so don't worry about that. Then finally, the quiz. So as always, as I pointed out before, there's the predefined exceptions quiz right here. Understanding predefined exceptions quiz. And actually, I think I took that quiz off of the site. Yeah, so you don't have that quiz to do. I need to get rid of that quiz. Okay, back to the write-up. So we answered all three of these questions. So now section C. What are the two things a programmer needs to anticipate when thinking about user-defined exceptions? What is probably the most common user-defined error we often see in programs and in online programs when you work online? What is the purpose of the throw statement? So let's go to section C. So in section C, now we're going to look at user-defined exceptions. In user-defined exceptions is when the user types something and it's incorrect. So the programmer needs to anticipate how someone uses the program might make a mistake and provide the message to help guide the user. So that's the two things a programmer needs to do, is anticipate how someone might make a mistake and give a message so the person can fix the problem. So just like this, if I typed in the incorrect password or username, then this error message comes up. So this programmer said that, hey, if anybody puts in the things here that don't match our database, then give them this error message. So it tells the person what the error is, so they've anticipated it, and tells the person how to fix it. So that's the two things that a programmer needs to anticipate. So in this last section, we're going to look at user-defined exceptions, and we're going to look at writing a program. So user-defined exceptions. Another example of user-defined exceptions is when someone enters the wrong password. So that was sort of what the example was shortly a second ago. So you can see they put in their email address, but then they put the wrong password, so you get this message. Now some programs will let you try again and again. Some will only give you like 3 chances. So the programmers can build that stuff in. Here's a tutorial about user-defined exceptions. And I'm going to go back to the write-up to make sure I haven't missed a question. Probably the most common user-defined error. You want to go back to that. Now, even though it doesn't say right here, but probably the most common user-defined error is somebody using the wrong password. That's probably the most common user-defined error, is a person using the wrong password. I do it 2 or 3 times a day because I have so many passwords I have to remember. Okay, this talks about user-defined exceptions, so you can either listen to this or you can look at the copy of the script. And as you look at the script, this of course just talks about different types of errors or different keywords that are used for user-defined. So try, you have to have what's called a try block, and the try block is what actually monitors for the error that could possibly happen. And then there's the catch keyword. So then the catch keyword you'll use, and that provides the information about the error. Then you have a keyword called throw. And what the throw statement is, the throw statement shows the user the error so the error can be fixed. So that's what the throw statement is used for. And then the finally block, that's what executes after the error has been, whether it's an exception or not, that runs through that's the end of that whole exceptions block. So right up here, here's the information about the throw and what the throw statement does. And what I would encourage you to do, rather than reading this, listen to the tutorial. Listen to this tutorial. Start to listen to that because it explains those things so much better. Now if I go back to the write-up, I just want to make sure, what is the purpose of the throw statement? Well, we just looked at that. What is probably the most common user-defined error? We looked at that too. So we're just about finished with this. So now this goes and looks at different types of program exceptions. So this one you can see is this is going to test to see if a number is odd or even. So what this program actually does is it checks right here, this command right here, mod2 equals 0. What that means is that divide whatever the value is for y. Mod is sort of division, and then it can tell if it's odd or even. And then if something's odd or even, then you can do more work with it. But that's what this message does. So if the person, if like the command said type in an even number, and the person typed in an odd number, then it would come back, it would throw this exception. Hey, the number is odd. So then you would be told to turn in and type in an even number. Here's some information, the drag and drop, so give that a try. User-defined exceptions assignment, this one you're all going to do. So this one you're going to look at previous examples in this recording and in the lesson. You're going to research and find at least 5 examples of user-defined exceptions. Define each exception in detail and how it might be used. And I'm probably going to change the number of points on that. So it's probably be like, for 40 points or something, or 50 maybe. So again, on this one, you're just going to research and find 5 examples of user-defined exceptions. Describe each exception in detail. The discussion, we skip those, remember. User-defined exceptions quiz, right down here, user-defined exceptions quiz. And finally, this is a project exceptions handling project, programming project. And again, the programming projects are optional, but you can give this a try. Those of you that are really getting into the programming, you're welcome to give that a try. So that's everything I have for you for week 7 in Visual Basic. Here we are. And by Wednesday of this week, I hope to have the alternative assignments for some of the programs that we have, some students have skipped, which is fine, and those will probably just be some simple research activities. So that's all I have for you. I look forward to your work coming in. Thanks, everyone. Bye.